I know you might be hanging out on a lazy Wednesday night, but it's time to get up and get on the move with us. Welcome into the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you stopping by for our recruiting and transfer portal update show. Leanne Herring right next to me, of course. You can catch her at the Rebel Walk, Cat's Wire, and I've got a preference toward the Voice of College Football in particular. But of course, we catch Leanne and we get together each and every Wednesday night. Leanne, how you doing tonight?
Doing good. We are back again at it. Of course, you saw us earlier. Our Ole Miss Live show broke it down. Big weekend in the SIP. We are heading into week 2 of another big summer recruiting weekend. Mark, of course, we know we talked a little bit about the Florida Gators, and we're going to kick it off there. I call it the shoot your shot weekend. Hell, every weekend in a recruiting weekend is shooting your shot, and Florida definitely shot with a lot of big time playmakers. There was some hits and there was some misses, but there's 3 guys I think that after this weekend, after that 1996 throwback thing that they're trying to relive down there. When I guess that you might correct me. I think the record, what was it? That 12-1 when they had the old ball coach out there in 1996. So wanted to make sure before I said anything that I had the record right, because wouldn't want George or any of our Florida Gator fans to be offended. But talk about shoot your shot weekend all weekend long. Florida made some big strides. They had some big time program guys in there, but I really want to highlight 3 guys when we get to it that I think that they really struck a strong chord with, and they are in the good running for. Of course, we know that we've talked a lot. Every week is a big week for every program for the next 3 weeks, and we're heading into week 2. But of course, we have to feature 2 programs that we've talked a lot about in our prime time headliner segment. Of course, Oregon looking to build that number 1 class. USC holding it tight on the On3 rankings right now, building this number 1 portal class. A&M is looking to build a top 5 class. So those are our 2 prime highlight headliners of this week. Going to be showcasing some guys, of course. Oregon and Texas A&M are going to be battling for 2 of the nation's top talent, including 2 guys that are well known here in the SIP. And then we rounded off with some guys that we didn't get to highlight earlier on our Ole Miss show. But of course, being here in Texas, I have the opportunity to scout and recruit a lot of top talent that you might not know. They've been out heavy on the camp scene. Fresh off Texas, SMU, Texas A&M. We know that some big programs are knocking on the door. So we're going to be highlighting 3 guys that I've had the opportunity to see in live reps and films over this off season, and see who could be possibly the next one. Is it going to be an SEC school, Big 12, or ACC school throwing down offers for some of the rising 2027 young stars? So like we said earlier on the social media post, let's pull up and let's get to it.
Yeah, so we'll take your comments and questions there in the chat, of course, but you can also give us a call. The call-in lines are open. Let's start with the Florida Gators, and at the running back position, one Carson Baker, and looking at his official visits lined up, the ones that he's taken already and the ones lined up for the next few weeks, he's going to be one busy guy going to places like South Carolina, Florida State, Ohio State, and elsewhere. 1,282 yards of rushing, 13 touchdowns last year. Also runs the 100-meter in fine time. And again, your take, Leanne, on one Carson Baker.
I think Florida really made a strong push from what we're hearing after this official visit weekend. We knew that there was going to be a battle amongst several schools, including Georgia and others that are knocking opportunity weights. But man, Florida shot their shot big with Carson Baker, and it looks like they did really well on this one. Baker was always really high up on Florida, thanks to running back coaches Jabari Juliki, who's really just pressed, this past off season, really, making Baker feel welcome and at home. Again, I think that after this visit, that again, Florida really set itself in this race in the hunt to take an edge. So I really think that this was a big win, and hit the money on that target with Carson Baker here. Of course, we know that Ohio State has been the longtime favorite in getting Carson Baker down, but I really think that between running backs coach Jabari Juliki down there in Florida and what he's kind of been doing. He's been playing the long game, as I like to call it, in this recruitment. I really think after this visit, from what we're hearing, he really enjoyed himself. Of course, every program is going to say, hey, this kid really enjoyed himself. Nothing negative coming out here. But again, I think really the hitter in this one, where it kind of really was the key turning point outside what I heard from the Baker camp, was that he in fact is, for what I'm hearing, is canceling that official visit to Ohio State. So could a commitment be lurking after this visit? It sure um, it sure may seem so. We'll see. We'll see what's going on in there. But again, I think that after that announcement came, from what I'm hearing, that it looks like Florida made a lot of big strides in here. So I think the when it all comes down to it, looking Baker, an overall picture, again, as much as we want to take from these visits, Florida Gator fans, get excited, but don't get too excited, because again, South Carolina, Florida State, we've talked a lot about Florida State, Mark, how they're just kind of sitting back, waiting to see how the dominoes fall. And then they're slowly enticing some of these big top 4-star, 5-star running backs, defensive linemen. We talked about the quarterback coup that's going down there, for the Knowles. So again, Texas is also lurking, but from what we're hearing, and also with that Ohio State official visit cancellation, I really think that University of Florida has really made a big gain in Gainesville this past weekend with Carson Baker.
Leanne, you might not be surprised that Tupelo, Mississippi's got a soft spot in my heart for certain reasons. Well, Jeraylin McCoy is a big defensive lineman coming out of Tupelo, and I got familiar with him this afternoon. Led his team to a 6A state championship with an undefeated record, 30 tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 sacks. And he may be able to get away from Ole Miss and Mississippi State, maybe.
Ole Miss and Mississippi State have continued to recruit him hard. Of course, he put his top schools, LSU and I believe Texas and Florida. In this week, after this official weekend, again, I think that this was another one where they shot their shot. I think it's going to be neck and neck between LSU and Florida, especially after the visit. The Longhorns actually have been another team that, like I said, he put in his top schools that have really been there from the start to finish. But again, this is going to be a miss, I'm going to say, for the state of Mississippi, from what it seems. As much as Mississippi State, and I know Ole Miss has definitely continued to recruit him, I really like where Florida sits after this official visit. But it's going to be a tough one between, I think that this is one that, while there may be some rumblings in the next couple of weeks of McCoy, and perhaps even a commitment, I believe that this is going to be one of those recruitments, Mark, that is going to go down to the wire. Again, but what from what we're hearing from McCoy's camp, and what he's put out there, is that after this visit, that Florida really made some big strains. Of course, we know we're just a little over a couple of weeks for him to make his official commitment. I think it's also going to depend whether he makes that Texas visit. If he doesn't make that Texas visit down to Austin, another piece where the dominoes could fall, and it could fall in the favor of the Florida Gators. But again, I really think that after this visit, Jeraylin McCoy will probably not end up close to home at Mississippi State or at Ole Miss, unfortunately, but he may very well be in the SEC as a Florida Gator. And it looks like, from what we're hearing, again, that McCoy had a very solid visit, and it seems that all that went on there really steered him in the direction of Gainesville. But again, he's got a couple other visits. Of course, we know LSU has been the top school from him for a very long time, but the Texas Longhorns, again, are going to shoot their shot big. And if he makes it down to Austin, they will still be in the running. But right now, it seems in getting the standout kid from Tupelo, Mississippi, where legends are definitely made in more ways than one, it looks like the Florida Gators have the pull after this official weekend. But again, a lot of recruiting still to go. But again, Florida, big win here, and making some big strides with the big man in the trenches out of Tupelo, Mississippi.
All right, let's keep it rolling. Talking about the Gators and CJ Bronaugh. Man, he's playing football not too far from me. I could go see him play on Friday nights. 30 tackles, 3 TFL, 6 picks, and 3 pick sixes for him out of Winter Garden, Florida.
Yeah, a lot of talent coming out of Florida. Of course, we know that the talented four-star corner, you gave a couple of his stats right there. Maybe you'll catch a game this fall and come see him. But for all our Nebraska Cornhusker boys of college football fans, this might not be something that you want to hear because, of course, we know that he is committed to Nebraska at the moment. But like many of these kids right now, Mark, they're still taking those unofficial visits. And Bronaugh has been one of those guys that he still kind of left the gates open despite his verbal commitment to the Cornhuskers. Um, I think that everyone in the camp, including from on the Florida end, from what we're hearing, was very happy with the way. And there's a lot of buzz surrounding, you know, he's also set to go back to Lincoln this weekend. So again, depending how he I think he arrives out in Lincoln is going to kind of determine where the things shift. Some other trips that he's got planned, of course, Penn State and Florida State. Again, setting up another coup, watching the dominoes fall, watching far from behind. Um, I don't think this is a lock for Florida as far as committing, as far as a flip right now, but I do like what I'm hearing from how this visit went enough to give it that it could possibly happen towards the end of summer or possibly closer as we get into the fall. Again, just because we get a kid on campus it's committed to somewhere, remember that's not guaranteed flips are brewing. That's not what we're trying to say, but from what we're hearing, I think that the gains again that were made with a CJ down this weekend really could shift the dynamic. But again, Florida State, Penn State are lurking, but for right now Nebraska is safe, but they're not too safe. We'll see how this visit goes down to Lincoln this weekend, and see what dominoes will fall there. But again, those three top guys, Florida hosted a ton of guys, but these are really three key depth pieces that I think that Florida's looking um, to bring on to help be instant impact players and to really build that roster that really stood out. That I felt that from what we're hearing have the opportunity to make segues and get a big edge this weekend. So again, a lot of diversity here as far as the depth chart. But again, Florida shooting their shot this weekend and winning big with some of the nation's top prospects in 2026.
Please hit the like button and subscribe here at the Voice of College Football. Keep in mind that the call-in lines are open as we wrap up from Gainesville and look ahead to a couple teams that have caught your eye this week in regards to a big official visit weekend. The Oregon Ducks, Leanne, at one point in the offseason, they were the number one ranked team for 2026. And they have taken a tumble. They had a number of decommits. The most highly publicized one was, of course, our guy Richard Wesley, of course, took the dive in the pool with Dan Lanning. We talked to Eric Scoble this afternoon on the afternoon show from 247 Sports Oregon. And we just talked about, it's one thing to have a decommit. It's another one to have that occur 2 weeks after the big announcement, the big to-do, the big display, the big splash, and then, you get the butt of jokes because of what happens a couple of weeks later. But that being the case, Richard Wesley's going to come right back to campus along with the number one linebacker in the country.
Oregon has had a tumultuous roller coaster when it comes to the recruitment. It's definitely been highs and lows, but this is the 5-star weekend back in Eugene, the redemption weekend. Again, I'm calling it the shooting your shot weekend, and Oregon is definitely making some big shots when it comes to try and get back in the graces, of course, of Richard Wesley and also some other top linebackers. I think the guy that everybody has been following and talking about in the recruiting world, and you mentioned him as well, the number one linebacker in this class, and Tyler Atkinson. That kid has really been kind of going here, going there, but really no, not everyone I think has a gist of where he will end up. Of course, we know that Clemson, Georgia, and Ohio State have all been in the mix to land. Of course, Loganville, Georgia, great out of Grayson High School. Again, I'm interested to see how the Clemson visit that he just took this past weekend, how he heads into this one, how it will shape his time at Oregon. Because remember, when you're coming off a visit from Clemson, and we know Clemson's getting hot in that recruiting trail. That's another team that's kind of been lurking. Dabo Sweeney has really kind of been quiet to the vest when it's making moves. But Clemson, from the recruiting trail to the official visits that they've been hosting heading into week 2, definitely a lot of star power, a lot of momentum down in Clemson. So it's going to be interesting to see just how much momentum they were able to get in this recruitment as Tyler Atkinson heads to Eugene as the number 1 linebacker in the country. And of course, we go back to one of the most interesting recruitments, commitments, decommitments, all in a matter of, what did we say, 10 days, in Richard Wesley, the 5-star star power out of Sierra Canyon, right there in their backyard of California, not too far out west. Again, like you said, his recent decommitment from the Ducks and Dan Lanning really just kind of set all sorts of memes. But again, even after his decommitment, he did share that it was a different, he still very much had Oregon in the mix, and in fact, obviously, if he's coming back this weekend, they still are in the mix. But it seemed like he wanted to explore his options. Or for me, when something happens like that, there's got to be something internally within the camp, maybe outside of football, that's kind of driving this. Again, that's just from my recruiting eyes, scouting eyes, looking in. Nothing from hearing officially from the Wellesley camp on that remark. But again, some of the other schools that are going to be battling. I feel like this week 2 is going to be a battle for some top recruits between Texas A&M and Oregon. Of course, Texas and Ohio State are also 2 schools that have been very, very heavy in this recruitment as for the number 4 edge rusher in the country. But again, it's going to be really interesting to see. There you go, the infamous the pool video that set all the ships in motion. And then just 10 days later, he's decommitted, and then now he's back where it all began. So it's going to be really interesting to see where he stands in all this, how Oregon stands in all this. There's so many takes I could take, but this is just the thing of recruiting. We take everything for a grain of salt. And a lot of teams right now are gaining momentum. Again, we're having a lot of these 5-star recruits that are hitting multiple campuses, but that is never a guarantee. So again, it's going to be interesting to see how Oregon approaches the situation, because even if he decides to recommit this weekend, you got to take it for a grain of salt, because like I say over and over, it is a long way till December. So again, Richard Wesley back again. Will he be diving back into the pool, recommitting, or will he continue to be on the move at Texas A&M, or Ohio State? It will yet to be seen. But in week 2, it's all about the Eugene, Oregon, and the Ducks for former Duck commit Richard Wesley.
Yeah, and certainly another school, Leanne, that you're tracking at this point as we move from the Big Ten to the SEC is a school that right now, with Mike Elko running the ship, has 2 hard commits for 2026, but very highly ranked players, as they've got the 7th ranked class, but obviously a long, long way to go right now. Tristan Keys has been a fixture on this show, and every time we talk to you, pretty much, the LSU commit visited Miami recently, one of the best wide receivers in the country, has a stop at Texas A&M, along with Braylon Womack on the defensive side.
Well, the Aggies are working hard to get 2 of the top players, not just in the country. We're talking about the number 1 guys on this board, but also the number 1 and number 2 player out of the SIP. So Texas A&M going back into that backyard of Lane Kiffin, trying to poach some talent out of Mississippi, and they have made a strong pull. Again, Texas A&M shooting their shot with Tristan Keys. They are the next man up, looking to try to pull the talented 5-star elite LSU commit. Of course, we've broken him down. I've had the opportunity to see him in live reps, and of course, this off season, the Bayou Bengals have done an excellent job, and Tristan Keys has openly said he still remains committed heavily to the Bayou Bengals. But again, every team would be foolish not to try to shoot their shot, and Texas A&M is doing just that. They have been, there from the entire process, lurking, and like many of these teams that we talk about, Alabama, and other teams. But again, like you mentioned, he was just at Miami this past weekend. He has Auburn, Tennessee, and Alabama also coming up. And then he will end those official visits back where it's all began, where he's currently committed to at LSU. But for this weekend, Mike Elko looking to finally build a roster, not that just money can buy, but that will translate down at Kyle Field, and also edging for that #1 recruiting class. But again, Texas A&M is going to be battling a lot with Oregon and the guys we're talking about. But let me go backwards just a little bit back to Oregon, because there's one guy that I gotta mention on that visit list. It's coming out, a guy that we've talked a lot about it, that I've seen up close and personal, that Penn State really has made the push for, keeping him in his backyard. Of course, we can't talk about this Oregon back visit without mentioning Joey O'Brien. I mean, I know that he's a safety, but the kid is just a straight up athlete. You've heard me. We've seen his clips. I've broken down his film. He will be up at Oregon. Of course, we know Notre Dame has made a very strong push as of late. He was just at Clemson, and he also is liking Tennessee. So again, Joey O'Brien was a name that many down south didn't know, but I guarantee you, after the tremendous strides in some of those OT7 clips, you definitely know his name now. And the Oregon Ducks are looking to get back and to get in his good graces. But again, Notre Dame, Penn State seem like the heavy hitters in this one. Again, he had a great visit at Clemson from what we're hearing, and then Tennessee on dock. So Oregon going, I didn't mean to reverse and go back there, but I couldn't make that Oregon primetime visitors list without mentioning Joey O'Brien.
Don't worry, Leanne. I'm keeping up. I am scouring the internet for highlights and clips and posts and everything. So you jumped back with Joey O'Brien, and I was able to find something here. So we get to see him work his magic. And again, Texas A&M's going to try to make a strong impression here on, or that's Oregon, on Joey O'Brien. All right, for 2027, we've got some guys that you are tracking in particular. Did I miss something?
Time out. Yep, time out. We still got to talk a little bit about Texas A&M. You know, these are two teams, and that was my fault because I just had to go back to Joey O'Brien. But you know, we talked about the #1 wide receiver in the country, and Tristan Keys out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, but another top-ranked safety coming out of the SIP that the Texas A&M Aggies are going to shoot their shot, of course, out of Brandon, Mississippi, Hartfield Academy down there. Braylon Womack, an extreme beast. This kid is just a force of chaos when you see him take the field. Super physical. Of course, he was at Florida this weekend. You know, we heard from that the Florida visit went fairly well, but for me, I feel like this wasn't a strong push enough yet to take Braylon Womack in that direction yet. But I do like where the Aggies stand heading into this weekend. After this, again, he's going to be taking a trip to Ohio State and also taking a trip to Auburn. Some other guys that I want to mention that they're also focusing on that are in state. Of course, you know, they say everything's bigger and better in Texas, and Texas A&M is doing a strong job trying to keep some of their top guys in their backyard. Some other guys to watch this weekend is North Crowley standout. John Turrington, he's the #2 interior offensive lineman that will be heading down to Texas A&M this weekend. Another top wide receiver that they're looking to boost to match with Aaron Gregory, who is a talented Aggie commit who will also be down there this weekend helping with the recruiting efforts. Out of Georgia is Kadon Finley out of Aledo here in Texas. Notre Dame, Texas, Arizona State have all been some of the top schools that we've been hearing for Kadon Finley, but Texas A&M is going to make sure on this weekend visit that they still can keep him close to home and definitely giving him a lot of food for thought. And rounding out the Texas prospects at A&M to watch, of course, is another offensive lineman. It's been all about the big guys up front this offseason when it comes to recruiting, because what do I always say? Can't get it done without the big guys up front. And out of Prosper, Texas, we have Zayden Krempin. He has been one of the Aggies' top targets from start to finish. Aggies looking to close the deal this weekend, looking to really cement their place in his recruitment. Of course, we know that LSU has also been neck and neck with the Aggies, but again, Aggies looking to keep some of their top state talent. Of course, Michigan and Longhorns are some teams that we hear mentioned, but I really think that it's going to come down to LSU and Texas A&M and keeping some of the Texas best out in College Station. So again, uh, Mike Elko and his staff there really looking to close the deal. For those of y'all who tuned into our Ole Miss show, we got to talk with Corey Barber, Ole Miss commit, and he was set in, and he was just a perfect example of a kid who was already committed. He was ready to focus, on his year. And I think a lot of these top recruits, while they're still taking visits, we're going to see a lot of dominoes fall in these next 2 weeks because, of course, a lot of the nation's top commits are looking to use these visits to kind of solidify, narrow down, and really kind of focus and make their commitment. So definitely a lot of dominoes falling. Of course, two big guys to round out that star power down in College Station, where Mike Elko is trying to build that top recruiting class. Once again, St. Paul Episcopal standout Anthony Tank Johnson out of Mobile, Alabama. We know that the Alabama Crimson Tide has been in a battle trying to keep Tank Jones in their backfield, but they're going to battle the Aggies this weekend. And of course, another Tank and Tank King, the Texas Memorial linebacker, has been another star player in this Aggie board, also heading down to College Station this weekend. Michigan and Notre Dame are two of those other schools that have been lurking for Tank King. So again, a lot of big playmakers between Eugene and College Station. Both these ball clubs, of course, trying to get that number one class. But, Mark, I was kind of thinking about it, from the recruiting standpoint. I know that everybody, you see the headlines, everyone's trying to reach for that number one class. Well, again, for me, it's while there's a lot of star power, it'll be interesting to see if the Aggies especially can finally get over that hump of getting that top class, whether it be top 5 or eventually that number one class, if some tables should turn that will actually translate on paper. And that's the biggest thing for me, in this off season. I look at it as it's great to have that number one class ranking on paper, whether it's through On3, 247, or ESPN. But the real question for me is, are these rosters with all these elite kids going to translate in 2026? So that's that $1 million question, and a lot of these teams are banking, especially down in Eugene and College Station, that it's will. But again, a lot of star power in the Big Ten and, of course, in the SEC.
So we'll let Leanne take a bit of a break here. We're going to go further down the list for some 2027 intel. But before we do that, we do have a call. So before we go to 2027, I guess for George's class standing, I don't know if we're going back to like 1973. I don't know. I just took a guess there. George, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good tonight, Mark. It's hump day. I'm over hump day almost.
Yeah, we all are. What does that mean for you? Almost.
Well, I don't take anything for granted. I could have an aneurysm right now on air. It could all be over any minute.
George,
I'm just happy for each second of. I'm just happy for each second.
Well, that's a good attitude to have. So what do you got for us tonight, George? What's on your mind?
Listen, when you get to be 65, even if you're a healthy stud like I am, every once in a while you look at your fingernails and you go, is my cuticle a little redder than the other one? Or you get it? It's just like every little thing. Oh my God, I just coughed and almost gave myself a hernia. It's just like shit gets interesting.
Yeah, you start to feel a few aches and pains that you never felt before. I don't want to admit to that, but it might happen to me once in a while too. Maybe.
Yeah, in a good way.
George, we just saw
I've never been through any serious physical pain, so.
Well, that's good to know. We just saw you in the Miami chat
I know.
last hour, and you were tearing it up again.
I feel sorry for them. If it wasn't for me, they wouldn't even have a channel. I'm the only reason they go there.
I think I had something.
They want to talk to a Gator. Oh yeah, you
They're
and
just
Cam,
fading.
you get a little credit too.
Okay.
Like 30.
Well, George,
You
we let
get
off the show talking.
34%. Cam gets 33.
Okay, we'll make the split. Leanne's letting us know that if you missed the beginning of the show, George, we were talking all Gators.
And about
I
them
know.
making
I
big,
came on right
big
at the
gains.
end. I came on. The first thing I heard you say was, okay, moving on from the Gators. I was like, no, don't move on.
Well, you got a lot to be excited about. We hit on, there was, that 1996 throwback star power. Energy was definitely feasting in Gainesville. We talked about some big games, but I was talking about some of the guys that I felt that Billy Napier and that ball club really made strides for. Of course, I feel like Carson Baker really set up really nicely down in this thing. Of course, a guy that everybody in Ole Miss and in the state of Mississippi been trying to get after, but it looks like he may have a new number one in your Florida Gators, that defensive lineman out of Tupelo, Mississippi, Jerrylin McCoy. And then I rounded it out with that Nebraska commit. I know all our Cornhusker fans listening in probably are not too happy to hear about their 4-star corner, CJ Bronaugh, possibly having Gainesville on their mind. But again, I'm calling it, Georgia, shoot your shot weekend, because I feel like all these teams are trying to shoot their shot, but I think Florida made some big segues, and there was a couple other guys I felt confident, but from that star power list, I feel like these are really the guys that the Florida Gators made a huge impact this weekend. And of course, I think the biggest highlight is where they went with Tupelo, Mississippi standout Jerrylin McCoy with that defensive lineman. I mean, if you haven't watched this tape, George, you need to, because this kid is a beast.
Yeah.
He is a beast, and man, he's gonna bolster that. Yeah.
I'm guessing shoot your shot weekend.
What is he? 6'8"?
George.
Right.
Yeah, he's about 6'7".
He's 6'8", 359. Hey. Right.
You gotta love.
He'll rip your head off. Hey, listen to this, Mark.
Oh yeah, he will.
I used to be friends with some of those guys. The closest I ever came to anybody massive was Akeem Olajuwon. I was like, there's 1 degree of separation. I was like best friends with his best friend, but I never got to party with him. You should hear some of the shit that guy told me about Akeem in college. He wasn't no innocent little kid. That dude, I don't even want to say it. I don't want to ruin his reputation. Oh my God, he's so big. Bit. The guy go like he do 7 grams all by himself, Massive. Hey, Florida has a guy just like Akeem Olajuwon. His name is Chilenu. He's like 6'7", 275, 250, whatever. Just some big dude that can jump real high. I love this shit, man. I can't wait for basketball season.
I know. I cover a lot of basketball right now. I'm in that. It's a little bit different, George, when you're covering high school hoops, because it's, of course, during the summer season. It's all the AAU, it's the EYBL, it's the Under Armour, all these kids playing. Nowadays it's not so much what you do on your high school team; it's what you do in these other leagues. So yeah, keeping up with college hoops when it comes to high school prospects, little different.
I wonder how many people on this channel really understand what we're talking about, AAU. And that kind of shit, camps and stuff. It's like you get the best of the best as much as you can to come together and play games, I actually got to do that a couple times. I was a wrestler.
Yeah.
It was fun.
They play them in the
big time shit, man.
They play them in interesting places, like, of course, like EYBL, which is the Nike tournament circuit, has its league of teams and stuff. They play like in Kansas, they play in Iowa, they play in some interesting places, that you wouldn't expect. Of course, they play in Memphis and some other places. But again, yeah, the basketball scene as far as recruiting,
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Hugh Freeze always has somebody there offering you temptations to commit to him. I love that guy. I hope when he gets fired next time, Billy takes him on in an advisory capacity. He could be what Nick Saban call them guys? It's like
Hugh
teach
Freeze is
me
on
how
the
to
straight and
cheat.
narrow
you know?
now. George, Hugh Freeze is telling us he's on the straight and
Yeah,
narrow now.
right. Okay. All right. Yeah, I believe you.
But I will say, to your point, though,
I'm
Hugh
sure.
Freeze having been there at Ole Miss, despite all those things, when it comes to recruiting and how he is with families, he's just very magnetic anywhere he goes. He's just a heck of a recruiter, and I know he's caught a lot
I
of heat
know.
with how things are going on
The
at
dads
Auburn.
are going. So you're actually going to get me and my son a hooker. Yeah. Let me make sure I got this right. And Hugh's like, hell yeah, I'll get you 5 of them. Adjoining motel rooms. I'm just kidding. I'm sure Billy does the same shit. Maybe
Well,
not.
there's always a
He might be the one.
there's always a dark side to recruiting. I think now with NIL, that's
I'm not.
become the
I'm
dark
not
side of
even sure.
recruiting.
I'm not even sure I'd call that a dark side. That might be the reason you play sports. Hopefully, someday some coach will come hold out a platter of gold and say, anything you want, take it. You want money? You want cars? You want girls? You want prestige? You want to? How about a PhD in science? What do you want?
Well, there's definitely a lot on the
So
recruiting
listen.
table now as far as negotiations.
On the more serious side, of sports, for the first time in like 5 years, I called my apartment manager and said, "Come fix my shit," And it's my shower. The grout's falling out between the tiles. The place is only like 45 years old. Shit happens.
Yeah.
And they sent some Cuban guy over here. He's from Cuba. Oh my God, I have a new best friend. Oh my God, that was so much fun.
All right.
He like, "Tu habla español," and I'm like, hell yeah, I habla español. And I really don't, but it put him at comfort, I only know how to say dog, bathroom, I'm hungry. But still, we had a good time. And he fixed my shit. I love that guy. He's coming back tomorrow to fix my screens.
Did you guys talk any sports?
I love Cubans. No. We don't communicate that well. I just keep nodding and going, see.
You had some fine cigars.
I'm not that good. I only know like 12 words. Oh my God. I'm so glad you brought that up. I can't wait to see him tomorrow. We're going to get me a cigar. I think he could probably get one in through Canada. You know what I mean? Like he has a cousin send him a package from Canada. Might get it in that way.
Well, George, we would.
Somebody gave me one of those.
We're going to attempt to keep this show on the rails for as much as we'd love to hang out with you.
Yeah, let's get back to Nebraska. You notice I'm wearing my black Gator T-shirt today, right?
I don't think we could tell.
Those blackout uniforms.
Oh, okay.
It's just a black T-shirt.
Yes.
I'm just fucking with you.
All right, George. You're one of a kind.
All right.
You are. We always enjoy having you.
We had a big day today. Listen, guys, we had a big day today at the free laundry. I'm like one of the supervisors, right? Oh my God. Never mind. You don't even want to hear about this. But it all ended well. So that's the important thing. I mean, like people were bringing in like 14.
If it's a quick
people were bringing in like 14 loads. They were bringing in like 14 loads of laundry, but you can only do 2. And so we were like, what are you doing? Why are... Never mind.
All right.
It's hump day. We got over the hump.
Let's lay down the hammer down at the free laundry station down there.
Come back next week so we can talk. We'll see how Billy Napier does in week 2 of the big recruiting weekend, and let's see how they shoot their shot with this upcoming weekend of visits.
Listen, Leanne. Listen, we do this every year, Leanne. We've done it like 3 years in a row now, right? We've been in
Yep.
serious trouble, dire straits, right? Right. And then like 9 guys commit in one weekend. And then we flip 2 guys from LSU and 1 from Ole Miss and 2 from Florida State and 1 from Miami, and we're done. Screw them.
Yeah.
I'm not even worried about them. You're going all these guys going out and get recruits 2 years early. Like, yeah, right. I don't think so. It's not how the shit works anymore.
Definitely a different ball game. Yeah.
If you
No joke.
if we offer 350,000 a year more than they do, we're going to get the guy. So I hope we have deep pockets. I think we do.
Definitely good to see you,
I think
George.
DJ Lagway.
We've got somebody coming up
is
right behind you
pumping all
here.
his money. I think DJ is pumping his money back into the program.
Call us
He's a
back
good
soon,
kid.
George.
I love that kid.
Have a good
He
night,
is a
man.
good kid.
He's buying offensive linemen now. He's so rich. He's buying offensive linemen. He's
Thanks,
like, I'll pay
George.
$1 million for that guy.
Always good to see you, man.
Love you guys.
Well, you know what I'm about to say before we take a call with Jackson. I love how George always leaves us in a profound effect because, hey, that might not be something that's out of pocket. Not saying that my guy DJ Lagway's out there buying recruits, but DJ Lagway has been taking a lot of his NIL and a lot of money and investing it back into the athletic program. And where does that all stem from? How do we get these kids is when we invest back into our program. So DJ Lagway, not a bad thought there, George. Like I said, even though it seems out of the box, George always leaves us with a lot of food for thought. And that could be another smart move, where we see that, usually we see in programs, alumni are the ones who are help bolstering the athletic boosters. But now with the way these kids are making money, they're able to return it right away. They don't have to wait till they go to college. So that might not be something that's so far-fetched George just left us with there. So
There's a lot of
DJ
wisdom.
Lagway, he always leaves us with something, with that food for thought, because you think about it, because DJ Lagway indeed has invested a lot back into his school, and he hasn't really had the opportunity to have a full starting season. So it's good. So another food for thought from George there with his profound unique perspectives, but we gotta love him and those Florida Gators all the way.
That's a good way to put it. And amongst all the moral
TV.
depravity and the zaniness, we get some gems, some pearls of wisdom from George. Jackson, it's good to see you.
Let's go see too, Mark. How you doing tonight, Leanne?
Doing well.
Doing good.
Have y'all gone over Bryson Cooley tonight?
We have
not gone. We didn't go over Bryson Cooley tonight, but before, because I saw Jackson and I meant to bring it onto the thing. Some of it's been an interesting couple weeks as far as some things we don't want to talk about, but because we got the Alabama crew up here, it definitely Keelan Russell is a name that we've talked a lot about. Of course, thinking of the Russell family right now, news broke a couple earlier today that Keelan's twin sister, in fact, who was already meeting him in Tuscaloosa, passed away. They haven't made the announcement as far as the cause of death, but regardless, thinking of Keelan Russell, the Russell family, I reached out to his father earlier today, just to let them know that we're thinking about him. But again, tough loss for one of the rising young stars. But again, I shout out and condolences to the Keelan Russell family and the Russells right now during this tough loss, kind of unexpected loss of Keelan's twin sister.
Yeah, I saw that from our friend Brody Smoot, and I was like, oh man. I will say Keelan Russell, he's in our prayers, that's for sure. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what happens for 2025, because this month looks like we've got a lot of commitment dates set on the way.
Yeah, there, and Alabama's I think Alabama, Texas seem to be the ones, and I don't know if you have some more, deeper inside with you you covering Alabama, 24/7, as far as, but it seemed like Alabama and a lot of the SEC schools are battling for these last couple weeks for some of the high profile quarterbacks. It's when you quarterbacks, defensive linemen, secondary guy. I don't think that some of the guys that we've talked about between Mark and I, between the Ole Miss show, between this show, that we haven't mentioned Alabama somewhere lurking. These next 3 weeks definitely are crucial on the recruiting trail, but like we talked about, you take visits, you take this time while all these SEC programs are going to land commitments and flips. It's still a long way to December. We saw it with Oregon and Richard Wesley, what's going on there. He commits, he decommits, and then he's back, back there for an official visit. So again, it's a crazy world out there, but yeah, Alabama definitely, as always, trying to is going, hard and heavy and definitely shooting their shot. I was telling Mark, this is my shoot your shot weekend, because in going into week 2, I feel like, a lot of these guys, especially the high profile players, are trying to get off the board sooner than later. That way they can head into the next, the mid to start of summer, ready, know where they're going, and can concentrate, on trying to, fix those things that the coaches have talked to them that they need to get better on. Of course, get ready for that senior season.
Jackson, what are you talking about on a daily basis there on the Alabama channel these days? What are Tide fans concerned about this season?
Well, we were talking a little bit about the first 3 weeks of the TV schedule, how we're playing at 11 a.m. against Wisconsin, and we're playing 2:30 p.m. Central Time on ABC against Florida State. And we've been talking quite a lot about some of the recruiting updates. While I was subbing in for Manny Wilson, I talked a little bit about our takes on the Crimson Tide with Coach Smook, including the Hall of Fame ballot for 2026. Mark Ingram in it, D'Amico Ryans. Although, let's be honest, not too thrilled about Dennis Franchione, because I don't really have anything nice to say about him.
I'm going to have to delve into Dennis Franchione's coaching record, because I don't believe that it's Hall of Fame worthy. I don't think it's anywhere close. I don't know where we get off on elevating coaches into the Hall of Fame with 60% winning percentages. I don't understand that standard. I don't think it makes any sense. And this, don't misconstrue it, anybody out there. This has nothing to do with Mike Leach. I believe Mike Leach is a Hall of Fame head coach. God rest his soul. But the whole winning percentage standard, don't get me started on that, because I go off on that every time we roll around to this part of the calendar and get to the Hall of Fame voting. Jackson, I can't stand it.
I know, right? It's like there needs to be some new rules in that Hall of Fame.
Well, there basically just needs to be intelligent, knowledgeable people on the committee. They don't need that many rules. That's the problem. We don't need the rules. We just need intelligent people that know college football.
Well, I don't feel like Caden Man's part of that committee. It sounds like something he's doing.
Who would be on that?
Caden the Man. Sounds like something he's doing.
Okay, well.
That when you just mentioned, I know him by Coach Fran, but when you mentioned Dennis Franchione, I mean, he was a staple out there at A&M, but again, to make it to the Hall of Fame ballot for me, that one kind of took me off loop. But how are things over there? How are they feeling since we're talking about recruiting? Any guys particular that Alabama that maybe we haven't talked about that you're kind of hearing from your inner circle out there that, the Tide's really kind of focusing on? Because I mean, Alabama sells itself in a lot of ways, but again, they're still in that transition era. They're still having to kind of prove themselves again, because people aren't just going to play at Alabama just to play anymore.
Well, I'm looking at from our guy Smoot, where he says Braden Roos, where he's a 2026 4-star linebacker. He shared on his Instagram story that he was really impressed with his trip to Tuscaloosa.
Say that name again.
Braden Roos.
Right.
ROUS.
Okay. Where is he out of?
Let's see. He is from Kell High School.
Oh, okay. All right. I was like, I thought you were going to say Braden Booth. I was like, well, he's not too far up the way. He's a kid that people were looking at down Ole Miss, but he's been injured, so I thought it was maybe him. But no, he's out of South San, here in close by San Antonio.
There he is.
Okay, there you go. Kel Adamoretta doesn't surprise me. I was like, I know that's a Georgia school. When he said Kel, I was like, that's a Georgia school right there. And what kind, and as far as from what you're hearing, Jackson, any particular position, we've talked a lot about, overall, I felt like some of the top programs, especially the SEC, have really shifted this offseason, focusing on getting secondary players like we're seeing up here, but also linemen. But anything about what Alabama is kind of utilizing as far as the high school recruiting trail, as far as any key positions that they're kind of targeting that you've been hearing about?
Well, we're trying to get that quarterback position filled up for 2026. We're trying to get Jet from Iowa State, see if he'll flip.
I did see that.
Yeah, I was talking about him a few weeks ago on Crimson Tide Live, and I talked about him with Coach Smook yesterday, as a matter of fact. And I'll be honest, I want to see if we can get him to flip from Ames, Iowa. That would be pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, and two, that'll be an interesting one. And people are like, well, why wouldn't he flip? But again, I go back to that opportunity. He probably will get an opportunity to start in Ames, and if he's looking to jump to another school, like I say, these kids need live reps, they live films. He probably get them more in Ames, Iowa than in Tuscaloosa. But I was talking a little bit earlier, going back to Keelan Russell, man. I know that Ty Simpson's on that top of that board, but I'm making that bet, and I'm saying it here that we're going to see Keelan Russell before this season ends over in Tuscaloosa. I think that they're going to put him in. I've seen that kid die over from high school career up until, like I said, until his time here in Tuscaloosa and whatnot. And I really think that he's going to change the tide. He's going to turn the tide over in Tuscaloosa. So I know that there's a lot of people that are Ty Simpson fans, and I understand that that's a kid that you got to give him his opportunity. He sat and he's waited in a time where people could have left and shifted. He's really been loyal and whatnot. But man, I think that Keelan Russell will be out there this season for the Crimson Tide at some point.
Whoever's our starting quarterback for 2025, they're going to be very happy with the offense that we've got lined up going into weeks 1, 3, and 5, the first 5 weeks of the season at the very least. Because, I mean, like, our tight end game's looking great. Ryan Williams doesn't have to do the bulk of the workload. He's got his other co-stars at wide receiver. He's going to be very happy for 2025. I think that whole Alabama offense is going to be very happy. Whoever the starting quarterback is, they're going to have a great time this season.
Now, I don't know if you saw me kind of shake my head when you were talking about, I don't think, well, I'm sure most fans outside in other programs, big programs, those early kickoffs, but I know here in the SEC, those 11 a.m. kickoffs, those are not my favorite kickoffs. When you're having games, I just feel like, I don't know if it's just an SEC fan thing. I just know that I know here when we're in Oxford and stuff, at those 11 a.m. early kickoffs, not a fan of them. I don't know how the Alabama fans feel about them. I like those night games. I was glad to see we got a couple more night games, but yeah, those 11 a.m. kickoffs in the SEC, not my favorite.
Me personally, I don't care what time the game is. You just let me know what time it is, and I'll tune into it. It's like,
well, as you well know, Jackson, when Colorado got popular a couple years ago, Fox put them on the big noon kickoff a few times. So they were playing 10 a.m. games at TCU, and then they had a home game or two against USC a couple years ago.
Yeah, that was on my birthday, week 5.
There you go. And then even Fox took it to the extreme when the Pac-12 came back in 2020, when they were the last conference to start playing football. Their first game was USC and Arizona State, and that was the big noon kickoff on the West Coast at 9 a.m.
Oh, yeah. That was, well, I would call it week 10, but it's like whatever week you call it for 2020.
Jackson, you're going to love this next week. We're going to do our all-time program rankings next week.
There we go. Tell your friends, your family, and cashiers a post about the match that Mark's bringing on with the all-time program rankings, all right here at the Voice of College Football. And tune in for On the Move Wednesday nights from Leanne Herring and Mark Rogers, all right here at the Voice of College Football.
When was your last appearance on Feinbaum, Jackson?
You read my mind. I was about to ask, what was the weekly Feinbaum update?
Week. I
Okay, I
called
think I
last.
saw
Yeah.
that one.
Yep. So I called on there. I'm probably gonna have to make sure to call either sometime tomorrow or sometime Friday, but I know for sure I'm calling back on there again.
Well, we appreciate you doing everything that you can, providing some good talk there on Feinbaum, and then sneaking in a name or two once in a while.
Oh, ain't time, man. It's the least I can do.
You are loved out there, Jackson.
I thank you.
Jackson, you are getting out there on so many shows and so many platforms. I can't keep track of them all. Probably a bunch that I've never heard of. But every time I turn around, I hear somebody make a comment about, well, Jackson was over here. Jackson was over here. I caught you on the Corn Nation show the other night.
Yeah, I mean, I figured I was like, well, I mean, I just got done editing Crimson Tide live shows. Like, I figured I got some time to kill for a little bit. So I'll go hang with Meanie and the crew on Corn Nation for a second week in a row.
Yeah. Like I say, I have somebody, whether it's TJ or Chris or somebody, let me know what you're up to so I can kind of keep track.
Like ping pong, ping pong, ping pong.
Well, we got how many Saturdays do we have left, or how many weekends do we have to left? I feel like we all got to occupy ourselves.
Well, we've got 80 days until week 0, 85 days until week 1, 86 days till Colorado, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Baylor, 87 days till week 1 Saturday, 88 days till Notre Dame, Miami, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, and 89 days until the start of the Bill Belichick era in North Carolina versus TCU on Labor Day on ESPN.
Yeah, that's good. That's going to be an interesting one. I watch a lot of that too because the founder of the PLL, of course, Paul Rabel, is made it to the Hall of Fame, but he's put out a new show there, and he was one of the teasers. He was talking to Bill Belichick. For a lot of people that don't know Bill Belichick outside the football and the girlfriend memes, he's really big in lacrosse, and we know how much UNC's been a powerhouse in lacrosse. So it'll be really interesting to see how that kickoff goes for him. But a lot of big recruits, even despite the turmoil that's been kind of rocking Chapel Hill, they're still attracted over there. I mean, who doesn't want to play with a guy with that many Super Bowl rings?
Well, I will say, if you want to hear about something other than Bill Belichick's private life, North Carolina at the Voice College Football is the perfect place where you got Myron and Joel Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Central Time, 9 p.m. Eastern Time. We got to get that to 1,000 subs.
You're talking my language, Jackson. As our buddy Jim R., who joins most of our shows here at the Voice of College Football, he's picked up on this. Jackson is the consummate Voice of College Football team player.
I do my best.
You're all over the place, Jackson. We appreciate it.
Anytime. Getting ready to rock and roll, and anybody needs me, well, I'll just be tuning into USC Primetime Live with Matt Zimick and Ethan Inman. And personally, I don't really like TMZ, but when I do tune into TMZ, I like what Ethan Inman has to offer.
Very nice. We even have a social media team, and Jackson, he's on board there as well.
Yeah, he's an ace when it comes to all that. Sometimes I'll look at my story and he's already got the show stuff, the link up stuff that I'm trying to do. So again, he makes it all happen, go around the scenes too. So thanks for that. And like I said, he always can set up the perfect intro, exit. He's our guy. So thanks for always coming in. And he's pretty damn good at talking Alabama football.
Well, it's all coming together. Just waiting it out for tomorrow night, where we've got some announcements on the Alabama channel.
If I was a decent marketer, we might actually have a good channel here, but that is not my strong suit. But this is a good idea right here. Minnie's throwing out, that would be a great section on the VOCFB website, the Daily Jackson sighting.
Ooh, I like that.
I hadn't even thought about that. I'm just like,
for keeping up with all your Feinbaum clips. Because I mean, not that I was like, man, you get on Feinbaum pretty a good decent amount. So that's got to say something.
Yeah,
we'll have a Daily Jackson segment. Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I'm calling in on there at least once a week. Like, I even called in a few weeks back when it was 2 days before Easter. I told him the next time you'll see Easter on 420 would be 2038. So that's going to be really funny right there. And I'm making sure I've got the guest list all set and ready and raring to go for teams, conferences, everything.
For somebody who's never called into a call-in show, that would be me. Jackson, how long do you have to wait when you call Feinbaum? What's that process like?
Well, this is what I've done. I've called the show 5 minutes before the show starts, and then like they kind of like get to their crazy callers first, or they'll get to their guest, and they'll either get to you first or they'll get to you 5th, 10th. You have to do it a lot, quite a lot before they get to you first.
Jackson is dropping links in the chat while he's talking to us at the same time.
I know. I was about to say he's talking to us, and then he's making sure to give everybody, because, like I said, I like to say, well, we eat, everybody eats. It's kind of the mentality. I love it. Team player all the way.
Jackson, you're awesome. We appreciate you, man.
Anytime, everybody.
When's the next time we're going to see you on a Voice of College Football show?
Well, tomorrow night is the 35th edition of the Alabama College Show. Jeffrey is out on vacation, so Coach Smook is stepping in his place as the substitute co-host, where we've got some major channel announcements. We've got a guest coming up. He's a former college coach. He won quite a lot in the Sun Belt in the 2010s, but I'm going to leave you all wanting for more until tomorrow night.
We got to tune in.
Do you think I could possibly, influence your show lineup one of these weeks and maybe come on and push my book?
If I'm all right with it. I'd be more than happy. I'd be more than happy to discuss the 90s. I mean, I love getting to discuss 90s everything, 90s cartoons, 90s Crimson Tide, especially that 92 season where we're having the best non-play ever in the history of college football against the Miami Hurricanes. So that's always pretty awesome. But yeah, that would be a pretty cool show right there. Having a Mark Rogers episode on Crimson Tide Live.
I'm going to be on College Football with Sam on Saturday. He asked me on.
Nice.
So we are going to do that.
Well, we'll say
you're getting on Saturday. Normally you take the weekend off. So
there you go.
Here we go. Tune in for that.
He wanted a 9 a.m. record, and I said, no, we're not doing that.
No, not happening.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
back it up a little bit.
Like I'll film anytime. Like that's the thing. I'm just like, it's like somebody's like, oh well, what time are you gonna film this episode? What time you film that episode? It's like, 7. It's like, cool. It's like I've never had like an early morning request. Like the earliest I've had so far is like an 8 a.m. show, which I'm like, yeah, okay, I can do that. It's like I don't mind it, but it's like I'm not gonna do that to guest or anybody else. Like it's like if they don't want to do like a late show, early morning show, it's like I'm just like whatever time works for you.
Well, Jackson, as you've noticed, we've delivered some quality guest lineups here on our daily show the last few weeks. So anything you can do to wield your influence and get us some more excellent guests.
That'll be the plan, man. That'll be the plan.
We appreciate it, Jackson.
I'll be seeing y'all soon.
Have a good night.
You too.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide and hotty toddy, gosh almighty.
All right, Jackson. Good stuff out of Jackson. The real MVP stopping by. Thank you for that. Yes, I have made a concerted effort to rebuild the show from the dust. So we are trying. We're kicking and screaming. Real.
The phoenix rising from the ashes, right?
Yes, from the ashes.
I apologize, guys, because I don't get to read all the comments, but I did happen while we were in that discussion to see the one. I bet Leanne's room, one of them is with court boards and recruiting. Oh yeah. It's not at that at the moment, but yes, my kids and people can attest to that. I've even had them made even rolling boards dry erase boards to keep track, because I like keeping track digitally with databases and all that as far as recruits and stuff. But I'm old school. When people go see me scout, I've taken pictures where it's always funny. I'll share a story. When I went to Under Armour Houston, I had forgot my notebook that I carry, and most of these times when you go, unless you know the kids, from far away, when you're looking, everybody's out on the field at different positions. They all wear their bibs or their numbers, and everything. So I know them by numbers or by colors. So I didn't have my book with me. But I did have a pen in my purse, and I was writing on my hand numbers and little notes. And this one guy, he kind of came over. He was a high school football coach. He goes, "What numbers do you have on there? What do you have on your hand?" I said, "Well, these are the kids that I'm looking at in notes." It was so funny. So yeah, so when it comes to scouting, I have a lot of creative ways to keep track of kids. That way, when I go back and look at film, I say, "Oh, that's 251. He was wearing the white," and then I write little notes, and I know how to write shorthand. So yeah, that's always interesting. But yes, my rooms in my house have been known to have cork boards with lots of post-its and names, and recruiting and all that kind of stuff, and dry erase boards, and legal pads and all sorts of stuff. So yes, I do have a whole stack of those. So you weren't too far off there on that guess. You would have won some money if you bet on that.
Yeah, I can see it. I can imagine that. I think I even said that a few weeks ago. I said I could just only imagine what it looks like around there. I used to do a dry erase board behind me. I was into that myself. Maybe I'll bring that back.
I'm thinking about putting all, the kids are like, "Mom, you need to redo your set. You need to redo, because this is our room. This is the room that, is strictly filming off limits." It's kind of like, okay, where I go to write, it's not set up like a conventional office, because I'm not a conventional person. I don't sit at a desk. I usually make a pallet on the floor. I've always done that since college. I write better and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, they're like, "Mom, you need to get some more football stuff. You have all this cool football memorabilia. Why don't you put it up?" And so I was like, I never thought about it. So yeah, we're gonna have to be doing some revamping stuff. But yeah, I might put the dry erase board back up here, and start, doing all my recruiting and doing plays and all that and everything. Yesterday on the way up, the boys were like, I was trying to drive and concentrate, and the boys were like, "Mom, can we put together, like a fantasy team, but with all our favorite cartoon characters?" So it was hilarious. The boys were going back and forth, who their tight end was first, tight end one was going to be. So yeah, we get real creative, but we definitely are a football family. I think my kids, including my girls, probably could recruit right now if they wanted to. So I might have to take them on the recruiting trail sometime.
In the chat, everyone, favorite cartoon characters. Okay. Fred Flintstone, always my favorite. All time. The Flintstones used to be my favorite show. Yes, absolutely. Not my favorite show now, but yes. Growing up, the Flintstones. Yeah, I've consumed a lot of cartoons over the course of my life, so I could keep that conversation going. Pit Snipe Husker, he just joined us. I think he just found us maybe a month ago. And he says, anyone else? Yeah, he made the comment about Leanne's house. And then also Pit Snipe Husker might be a little bit confused about a comment that I made about trying to bring this channel back from the ashes. So he said, I didn't know that, Mark. I thought you started the Voice of College Football. What was here before? Yes, I did start the Voice of College Football. And it's actually called the Voice of College Football. It was originally Mark Rogers TV. It became the Voice of College Football because people, don't chuckle when you hear this, people actually called me the Voice of College Football a lot. And so there are a number of people that they made up the nickname. I can't really credit anybody in particular. It was probably like 30 people. So they kept calling me the Voice of College Football. So I had a friend who said, "Mark, wake up. Hello." That's your name
That's
right
the
there.
name
There's the channel.
right there.
That's the
There you go.
marketing right
Yeah.
there. And I said, "Oh yeah, okay." They said, "If people are calling you that, then there you go." No, but I was just basically Pit Snipe Husker was alluding to, yes, these 46,000 subs. Where did they go? So I got to bring it back. We've got to bring it back. So help us out with that. All right, let's get to the final stretch of the show here. Elmer Fudd, okay, and no other choices made by anyone. Okay, duly noted. Very good. Favorite cartoon character before we proceed?
Gosh, there's a lot. Let's see. I'm gonna probably say, well, it's not necessarily a cartoon bear character, but I'm gonna have to go with the Grateful Dead dancing bear. Grateful Dead is one of my I know,
What?
but it plays a lot on there. I know.
We're talking like Saturday
I know
morning
that's really random.
cartoons here.
Yeah,
I'm not
but
going to
the
bring
Grateful Dead
classic
bear
rock
is
into it.
almost there. I'm sure there's a cartoon in there somewhere. Let's see. Favorite character. Let's go Looney Tunes. Let's go Yosemite Sam, and let's see. Wile E. Coyote.
Okay. All right. We'll take it. I'm going to go way off the beaten path for anyone who remembers Hong Kong Phooey. All right. All right. Let's go to 2027. Oh boy. Leanne told me how to pronounce his name. We went over it like 4 times, and I told her if it was going to be 10 minutes later, I was going to forget. And it's been like an hour and a half later. So Zeke, Ayangbele.
Ezekiel Ayambule, he's a kid that we've talked a lot about across the board. He's a 2027. He's a kid that I've been watching, out in Langham Creek. He's what I like to call a hybrid defensive lineman. Primarily right now, when you see him, he gets reps at edge, but at the collegiate level, from what we're hearing from Texas A&M, and some of the other SEC schools that are looking for him, he's fresh off of camp at Texas. They were really impressed what they saw. Now, he didn't walk away with an offer, but this is a kid that I wanted to feature on our Ole Miss show, but there's plenty of SEC school interest, Mark, and he's one of the guys I want to feature because I keep saying, who's it going to be? Alabama, Texas, or Texas A&M that's going to get on the horn and give this kid the offer? Again, he still has a little bit of ways to go as far as his technique, but from what I'm seeing, again, a 2027, 6'3", 260. Of course, he's got those bloodlines, not just on his dad's side, but on his mother's side as well. Both star athletes in college at Virginia Tech. His father, NFL veteran Dwayne Brown, and his mother was a top shot putter at Virginia Tech. So when it comes to athletic abilities, this kid is he takes the cake, having those in his bloodline. This past year, Mark, he only saw action in 7 games, but again, as a sophomore. But that was good enough to put him on that first team district in the 16-6A out in Texas, having 40 total tackles, 7 tackles for loss. Let me just pick up my notes here. Like I said, I've had the opportunity to see small flashes of this kid just in spring practice in his tape. He's really electrifying when it comes to the football field and when it comes to the trenches. He just is this undeniable force. Again, he's what I like to call that hybrid versatile defensive lineman who just really defies gravity. I think that he's one of those kids that really already just glides effortlessly across the line. You guys have heard me say that plenty about him. He's really good at anchoring down in the trenches and bursting off the edge like the coiled spring. So when you hear me talk about that coiled spring analogy, I'm talking about Ezekiel Ambule. Again, when you watch him weave through blockers, he just makes an impact felt at every step. He's extremely physical. He wreaks havoc in those lines with each tackle, with each sack. I mean, his film right now doesn't even do him justice, and he is a strong, coachable kid. So again, I could go on and on, but this is a kid to keep your eyes on. Texas A&M, Alabama. He will be heading to Texas A&M for camp this weekend. We're hearing a lot of good things from the Texas A&M side, really, really wanting to give him this offer. But again, while he plays edge at Langham Creek, at the collegiate level, most programs are wanting to see him at defensive tackle. But again, there's got to be some SEC school out there willing to shoot its shot, and I think it's coming. But again, we'll see it this weekend if Texas A&M, if they are going to be the ones who are going to get on the board as far as SEC schools for the talented 6'3" powerhouse coming out of Langham Creek and Ezekiel Ambule.
Oh, the way you just said it, I might have screwed up. I was going to say, Leanne, give me one more chance. I tried. Ayangbule?
Ayambule.
Ayangbule. All right.
Yeah.
I'm going to save this and put it somewhere close. Ayangbule. You get it right, young man. Sorry about that. All right.
And we
Next
look
up.
forward to Yeah, we're gonna get back to Houston and seeing him, but again, he heads to Texas A&M. Not he had a great camp at Texas. Again, they want to see him put on some weight from what we're hearing, and some other things very close to that offer. But again, this is a kid who's relentless in the trenches, and he is going to be one of those kids that he's extremely gifted at hunting down quarterbacks with extreme determination. Has a good football IQ. And I'm really, he's one of the kids that we need to watch out of the Lone Star State. So if you're Texas, Texas A&M, Alabama, heck, if you're Ole Miss, we know that Baylor and Houston have done an excellent job, especially Baylor, in really pursuing him. But we'll see if an SEC school is going to take the jump and put that offer down. But definitely, that's the name you need to know heading into the summer season.
Jan Belay. Okay. Believe it or not, I was at one time a professional announcer. Okay. All right. Defensive back. Mikhail McCreary is also on your board for 2027.
Well, this is always the most difficult part, Mark, as far as being able to, see who we get a talent. But I really focused on Texas. I've been spending a lot of Texas, and we talk about SEC schools trying to get into the graces of this Texas pipeline. We know there's so much talent, but this time we really see the pipeline kind of shifting down to South Texas here in San Antonio. Kentucky is one of those schools in the SEC that has really opened up the pipeline here down in South Texas, getting a commit earlier this week and hosting some of South Texas's talent. So San Antonio has been on the rise lately on the high school scene when it comes to SEC talent. And this is a kid over there at in S.A. Johnson here, not too far up the way from me, already a 4-star, top 20 quarter in the country. Some of the schools that he's been looking at is OU, SMU, Clemson. This past season as a sophomore, he was named the Texas District 27 6A Defensive Newcomer of the Year. He had 46 tackles, 9 PBUs, 3 interceptions. He's about 6'1", about 175 pounds. Again, this is a kid that not only excels on the gridiron, but he also excels on the track field, already clocking a 4.5 in the 40, and he's got a great top end speed at about 21 miles per hour. So again, another cornerback that we talked about with that dynamic footwork. One of the things from looking at his tape is that even though he really shines as a corner, and that's what he's going to play in college, and that's what most people are recruiting him, he's got a really he's one of those versatile utility players that I say that's why that I think a lot more eyes on him. Of course, he's fresh off Texas camp, that I think that he's one of those kids that as he refines his skills and as he continues to excel, that he's going to be one of those players that could have various roles on that in the defensive scheme of things. Like I said, he makes it effortless when it comes to stepping up as a nickel defender at the line of scrimmage. And I think that whether he's looking at patrolling that backfield as a safety or changing forward to make crucial tackles in the run game, this is a kid that I really see embrace both roles. He consistently proves that he can be a game changer on the field. Again, he's really instinctive when it comes to his playmaking abilities. And I think that right now he's extremely ready and really versatile. But again, he really shines at multiple roles. But at the corner, that's really where I see him shining at collegiate. But his skill set, what he has in his toolbox right now, just that he can be dynamic at so many different positions in that defensive playbook, is a kid that I really like to watch. So again, some schools to watch in this, of course, are Texas, Clemson, SMU, and Oklahoma. And of course, he's been one of those guys on Texas's board, really high up out of San Antonio here in South Texas. But again, Mikhail McCreary is a guy that is on the rise this summer, is another 2027 talented guy out of the secondary. Definitely a skill utility player on that defensive front that I think that many schools are going to be taking notice already.
Ricky Shorts Jr. is a wide receiver as well out of Kingwood, and he's on your board as well.
Well, when I go out to go watch some top recruits, and a couple weeks ago, I was out at Kingwood down in Houston watching, of course, coveted offensive lineman in 2027, Kennedy Brown, from Ole Miss to Alabama. Everybody is looking to get him. Was able to catch up with him and talk about his Ole Miss recruitment. But of course, it was during their spring game. You always find hidden gems, and Ricky Shorts Jr. for me out of Kingwood was that hidden gem, the guy that no one is talking about, minimal highlight reels. But when I was watching him, and granted it was a spring game, I said, I told his coach after, where did this guy come from? The reason there's not a lot out about him yet, he's also a very talented baseball player, helping Kingwood this current season really make a run in that Texas baseball high school circuit. So again, a very talented player. Why there wasn't a lot of wide receiver film on him is because he spent last year primarily as a specialist, a return specialist for Kingwood. But this year, I believe that they're going to make him more of a signature in that as a wideout. Of course, he has great size, built and frame, 6'2", 180. When I saw him, I mean, this is a kid that can take on any role. He's got hands like glue. He's got exceptional speed. He's getting some interest for some FCS schools, but the big guys haven't pulled the plug. But I'm telling you, Ricky Shorts Jr. out of Kingwood out of Houston is a guy that you want to know. In the short time that I saw him there, those 4 quarters of that blue and white scrimmage, I think I saw him line up in the slot. They used him as a blocker. He's very physical. And I like to say they used him in the offense as a decoy. So some of their other top guys that are at running back and also play the slot could make some of those short yardage touchdowns in that spring game. So again, Ricky Short out of Kingwood, he's going to build that film this offseason. Looking forward to getting back to Kingwood to doing some more evaluations on this kid. FCS interest level, but I'm telling you now, Ricky Shorts Jr., Kingwood, he's going to make his mark this next season, because I'm telling you, once he hits that offensive playbook for Kingswood, and they're going to utilize him outside of being a return specialist, super dynamic, a dynamic wide receiver in the making. So again, Ricky Shorts out of Kingwood. Top corner, Mikkel McCray out of South Texas, in San Antonio Johnson. And of course, again, Ezekiel Ambule out of Langham Creek, who's going to be the SEC school. I'm telling you, that's going to get another top rising defensive lineman. So again, plenty of talent to watch. It's early. It may seem early to get on the 2027 board, but again, these are some of the guys that I've evaluated and scouted this past off season in the last couple of weeks, that I'm really seeing a lot of flashes and opportunity. And I think that some SEC scouts are ready to pull the trigger, just looking as many coaches are, as to get them to camp, to kind of see them in live reps. And more importantly, with them being 2027's mark, you also want to see their jump from their sophomore to their junior season. So I expect that these 3 guys are on the rise, but again, looking forward to getting back out to their respective schools and getting some more film and scouting, evaluating them here in the fall. But those are some names that we need to know heading to week 2 of the summer season, recruiting camp, whatever you want to call it. Everybody's shooting their shot.
The real MVP, thank you so much for encouraging everyone to hit the like button. It's a simple thing to do, but it helps the YouTube algorithm. So please do that. Blue Wolverine, I can't say much for your football team, but your choice right there on Super Friends. Yes, Super Friends, one of my favorites all time, definitely in the top 3 to 5 for me, but it's got to be early Super Friends, because then, just like any other TV show, they always run it into the ground, jump the shark, and it becomes nothing close to what it was. But yes, Batman, greatest superhero of all time. Yes, the Adam West Batman, of course. Okay, now we also have not many rules here at the Voice of College Football. Basically, I can summarize it this way. Rule number 1 is that whatever I decide on that particular night those are the rules. So whatever I make up are the rules. That's rule number 1. Mark makes the rules. Rule number 2 is that we only let people call in 1 time per show. George is begging and pleading, and since he comments all the time and he's unlike anybody else, okay, you get 1 minute, George. George is in the chat saying that he only needs 1 minute to ask Leanne something. And so if Leanne approves, I guess we can let George on. But I am serious, George. You get 1 minute. I am going to set a timer, and I'm going to count you down from 5. So I hope you're ready. Here we go. George, you're on. And you'll actually have like a minute 10.
I hope I'm ready for this.
A minute to to set the
I'm down to
stopwatch.
I'm down to 50. I'm down to 50. I'm down
Well,
to
I haven't
50
started the
seconds.
clock
You
yet
know?
because I can't find it.
What I wanted to ask Leanne is if she has seen some of the stuff on the internet. I saw a video yesterday. It was 5 minutes long. And when it got done, it said none of this was real. It was all created by AI on a computer. You follow me? So I'm afraid there's a video coming out in a few years of me humping a shark. And I'm telling you right now, I didn't do it. At least not naked. I was wearing short pants.
Isn't that what happened to Jim McElwain? They caught him humping a shark or something that looked like it, right?
I just don't like to be. I don't like to be accused of being naked when I had underwear on. You know.
All right.
There's a big difference.
George, I thought I was going to give you
God
60
damn it.
seconds, and I didn't realize how long 60 seconds was.
I'm an old time. Listen, I'm an old time SEC coach. I don't put up with no shit. I'm glad you guys tolerate me at all.
George, before you get on, I do want to talk a little bit about, I was telling Mark, I love that note that you talked about when you left us that food for thought about DJ Lagway putting money back into the program. I mean, that's not a far-fetched thought. Not that that's going on.
Oh, you know it's true. You know it's true. You know it's true. He's paying the whole offensive line. That's why they will die for him. They're like, we will kill for you, man. He just gave each one of them $450,000. You know.
But you know, hey, is it really any different than what quarterbacks do in the NFL when they treat their offensive linemen to cars and vehicles? Except he's doing it. He could very well be doing it in every way. But again, that's another food for thought, another creative thing. Because again, most people think of athletes investing in their program.
Listen, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where DJ. I don't know where his mommy and daddy came from, but whoever they are some good people. They raised a good boy. This guy is not faking it. He's not pretending he's a good boy. He's like my kids, you know, and he loves his daddy and mommy and God. I can America
attest.
Football.
I can attest to his parents, especially his dad, having had the opportunity to talk with him and things. And he comes from a smaller town outside of Houston. Real good people, like I said, when people weren't sure about him panning out, I said this kid is built different. And I know a lot of people say that about elite players, but he's just built different all the way around. I mean, when he was all in at Florida and what he did for that program, like I said, a lot of people don't realize that DJ played through injury a lot last year. So can just imagine what this kid is when he's 100% healthy. I hope the floodgates are about to be ready because the SEC and anybody team that has to face Florida, whether it's on the road or at home in the swamp, man, they're going to have it in for them. And I know my Ole Miss Rebels don't like hearing it, but you got to give credit where credit is due. And like I said, I've had the opportunity to see DJ Lagway in his career. And like I said, he really is built different. I feel like a lot of these kids, especially in this Houston area where he's from, they're just built different. Like Keyshawn Henderson, Keelan Russell, obviously he's from BMW, but a lot of these kids.
Right, exactly.
George, you want to see a good boy?
Nobody from Mississippi.
You want to truly see?
Has anybody from Mississippi ever
done what?
First, I want to ask Leanne, has nobody from Mississippi ever became a billionaire? What's going on in Mississippi? Why can't you buy us a football team like Florida does and everybody else?
I think it's just a different. I think
my brother lives there.
Nice.
Now, George, you want to see?
My brother lives there in a town.
George,
you can go ahead, Mark. I got to see it. I'm begging.
I just
show it to me.
You were talking about a good boy, a good son, and I automatically thought of this because my son posted that this week.
Good.
How sweet.
I have 4 of them.
Nothing like it, huh? And Leanne's got quite the crew too. The future All-Americans.
2 boys. Yep, 2 boys, 2 girls, and an adoptive one that is on his way from Paris to play JUCO basketball in Iowa of all places. So I'm trying to groom him in the fact that France might be a little bit of a different scene than Iowa is. So yeah, so
Hey,
super excited.
listen,
Yeah, nothing
listen to
best job
me.
in the world. Yeah.
Listen to me. I'm 65 years old and I want to do it again. I'm perfectly viable. Do you want to really have a good, smart ass kid? Call me off the air. I'm like, I'm willing to donate. Can you imagine? Be like, you're just like your dad.
I knew I took this way too far.
All right. Glad we got
Good night,
that one
guys.
out of the way.
It's like I said, I think I'm good where I'm at. I have a crew of future All-Americans and extended recruiting family that are like my kids. So I'm good for now, but thanks for that, George.
It's always entertaining hearing George. You never know what's going to come out of his mouth, and that's the beauty of it.
Always entertaining. And I was thinking of you earlier because I was doing some stuff on Kentucky, and there was a column that came out about, we're always talking about this quarterback situation. I don't know whether to take it as a puff piece, but of course we know we've talked a lot about that quarterback situation not being promising. Now this 2026 and 2027 class might pan out, but we need the Wildcats to be here. And the article is basically saying how Kentucky's quarterback for the season has put on some weight, so he's may become a little bit more physical. I didn't go past it, but I thought that was kind of interesting that those are the kind of articles. And then I was also seeing how, talking to some SEC people and SEC insiders saying how they feel that this is the year for Mark Stoops. I think, what is this, year 13? I can't even think that it's already year 13 or whatever.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
It's crazy to think because I feel like he was just here. And it doesn't seem like 13 years of Mark Stoops in Kentucky, but they're really saying that this is really the year that if he doesn't make something happen, even improve by the slightest, that he's gone. And I thought of you earlier because I know we're always talking about Kentucky.
Yeah, I could have told you that. No offense, but I mean, I'm just done with this whole thing. Like, when it's like something that just stale. Like, honestly, I wouldn't mind going 0-12 just for something different. I'm just tired of being in the same place. Like, we're never making any positives. We're just all negatives. But it's like a slow death. It's not like a quick, instantaneous death like the Ohio State-Tennessee game where Tennessee fans knew it was over, like in the first 5 minutes of the game. It's like, no, we're just slowly being the life choked out of us. I mean, Zach Calzada is the 16th best quarterback in the SEC. So the only thing I have good to say is we only got up to go. When you're at the absolute floor, you can only go up, and that's where we're at.
Exactly. And it's really interesting to see because, I cover Kentucky now over at the Wildcat Wire for USA Today. And they've had a big recruiting weekend and they signed this kid, Davis McCray, who's extremely talented. He's out of here, South Texas in San Antonio. And, and they've had a lot of promising visitors. So it seems like this 2026 and 2027 recruiting class are really buying in and almost that there's nowhere but up from here. And another thing that they've told me a lot about is the coaches don't sugarcoat it down there in Lexington for them. And that's what's also been really enticing. Like 2 out of the 3 recruits that I've talked to that have made visits or going out there, have said that how Kentucky's been a little bit of a different kind of landscape because they're shooting them straight. They're not trying to sell them on this prestige that Kentucky is, but the fact that these young guys can come in here. And maybe I feel like that's the shift we got to go over in Kentucky is not just build from the transfer portal, but like you said, we've kind of hit rock bottom. We need something new, not taken away from what Mark Stoops inherited, because we all know what he inherited. It was not a football program, a football school, to begin with before he got there. So he's made a lot of strides, but like any place, when things become stagnant and stale, where do you go? And I feel like that's right. like you were saying right there, that's where Kentucky is. But I hear a lot of these 2026 and 2027 recruits, of course, that commit Davis McCray, who just committed after his visit, really saying that there's an opportunity to breathe a lot of new life into this program. And that's really been one of the selling points, other than the fact that, the coaches have been real and they haven't been trying to do a song and dance for them like other schools that they've been to. And these are some of these kids have been to other high profile SEC schools. So that's kind of an interesting take that, they've been giving me some insight.
Well, I don't mean to sound callous against my own head coach, but I mean, it's hard to sell a vision when you got nothing to you got no pieces to the puzzle. Like, we need pieces. Yeah. We just don't even have a puzzle to build with. Like every team, like even South Carolina, Arkansas, they have flashpoints in the season you could highlight and say, well, we need
even Vanderbilt.
Right, even especially Vanderbilt. I mean, shoot, if they would have beaten Texas, they're one of the. I think they were one of the 20 best teams last year. I'm not even joking. They beat Alabama, and they probably should have beat Texas. To be honest with you, they've got a vision. Kentucky, we have no vision. We were just completely lost in the wilderness. So I mean, the only thing Kentucky's got to sell is just honesty and say, hey, we need you, and you can play right away. That's all we really got.
Well, just to be fair to Real, you said that there were no flashpoints. They beat Ole Miss.
I mean, yeah, I guess that was a flashpoint. We did beat Ole Miss, but after that, it was just so horrendously bad that it felt like every possible momentum. I mean, when you lose to your ACC rival by 30 points, I mean, it's the team's given up on you. I mean, that's what happens. I mean, I know Louisville was a good team last year. They're not 30 points better than any SEC team. They shouldn't be anyway. It's a complete joke how it ended. And this year, there's no hope because our schedule's the same as last year, and we play Texas, Georgia, Tennessee. You know, we got 4 or 5 losses before the helmets roll out. It's just unfortunate. I know Mark, he's smiling because he's never felt this position. He's always the one dominating the helmet games, and we're always the one losing the helmet games.
I just always like when you call in, Real. I just typically have a smirk on my face, regardless of what the topic is when you call.
That's fair. Listen,
but I didn't mean to take you away from your question. I knew that if you called in today, I wanted to hit that Kentucky because man, I was like, I thought of you. I was like, I hope Jareel calls in tonight because I was like, okay, we need to talk a little bit about Kentucky because I know it's a gloom time right now for Kentucky, and it's hard trying to rile up fans, even with commitment.
This is the worst it's been, I would say, since the end of the Joker Phillips era. Every single point I remember throughout the Stoops tenure, even when he lost to Southern Miss back in 2017, 2018, that was a pretty low point, probably the lowest point in the tenure before this year, but at least he beat, I think, South Carolina. And I know South Carolina wasn't any good, but for Kentucky, beating South Carolina is like beating Ohio State for us. That's how bad
it's one of those it's one of those unspoken rivalries, I think, that Kentucky has always made. But yeah, I started my career at Kentucky during the Joker Phillips era. So
God bless you.
Believe me, I know. I know how that's it, and that's the segue how I actually got to start covering Ole Miss football, because the trade-off was, okay, you cover basketball, which, you know, basketball never goes out of style down there in Lexington or anywhere in Kentucky. And then I got to well, why not cover UK football? Okay, well, I really want to cover Ole Miss football. Can I do that too? So yeah, that was kind of my segue. So Joker Phillips was the unsung hero in my opportunity, unspoken, to be able to cover, because man, Kentucky football was so bad. But Joker Phillips was one of those guys. You got to love Joker Phillips, of course, what he did for the program, coming back to his alma mater. But he's one of those guys that I've always said, as a head coach, he didn't shine. But I think Joker Phillips was always been dynamic as one of those guys that really shines as a coordinator positions guy. That's really what always Joker Phillips' strength was always been. But I don't think he got that opportunity when he was at Kentucky.
Yeah, to say he was over the skis as a Kentucky football coach is probably putting it unmildly. I mean, honestly, can't think of how it could have gone any worse his tenure at Kentucky. Like, I'm sure he's a great man. I'm sure he's doing great things now, but it just didn't work out. And I mean, it really didn't work out. Like, we were historically bad under him.
Yeah, I remember that whole time trying to get cover in football, and for me, like I said, this is an SEC school, and it was a new shock for me, but I got to learn a lot about basketball, and it's paying off now, because now, like I said, back at the Kentucky beat as well, getting to write about basketball. I tell Mark I write more about basketball in Kentucky than I do football these days.
Right. Well, that's how it's always going to be, because Kentucky, or at least the state of Kentucky, basketball is the #1 sport. And that's why I've always told Mark, Kentucky's never going to be able to win a national championship. Our ceiling is to make the playoffs, because, it's just a cultural thing. We don't value football as much as the entire rest of our conference, except for Vanderbilt. And that's probably it. Even Missouri. Because Missouri's not good at anything, so they can just good at they just put money in football by default because football's the best sport. Yeah. But for Kentucky, we've staked our claim in basketball so much that we really can't afford to bring the resources in football, because how prominent basketball culturally is here. So it's a shame. I think Mark Stoops has hit basically the ceiling of where Kentucky football can go with that 10-2 season where he beat Penn State. I think that's probably the ceiling. Maybe a first-round exit is the absolute ceiling because he was like 14 that year. So I know you got to get top 12. So it's going to be tough going forward. But
yeah.
Thanks, Leanne. I'm just looking forward to a coaching change. I'm just looking forward to something different. So anytime I get some hope, I appreciate it. So you've made my day a little bit better today. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Daryl.
Yeah, no problem, Mark. It's good being on with you. I'm looking forward, by the way, to the Big 12 exploding in a few years because their head coach, or not head coach, Commissioner Brett Yormark has decided we want to do what's best for college football. Isn't that nice of him? Just to say I'm willing to sacrifice my own conference, Mark, for the greater good of the game. Isn't that nice of him to take that landmine for everybody else? Isn't that such a nice guy?
I know you don't have too many friends in the Big 12, Daryl, but I want to keep the Big 12 around. I enjoy the football.
Oh, I do too. It's the most competitive conference. It's the funnest conference to watch every single week. But man, you got to call stupid out as it is. I mean, this is the complete idiotic move that will kill the conference. You want to go to a 5+11 model? Has anybody told Brett Yormark the math of what 5+11 is going to do to his conference? Has anybody told this man how to do basic math? Anybody? Seriously. It's a death note.
The ACC and the Big 12 need to run with that 4-4-2-2 deal and take those two spots and be happy about it.
Yeah, exactly. I don't understand it. I mean, if you're a recruit, I know this is recruiting. So if you're a recruit and you see your conference, you have to win your conference every single year just to have access to the college football playoff. Why would I ever go to one of those schools? Why? I mean, seriously.
And from a recruiting standpoint, the way and I never thought I'd be saying this, but man, the way Texas Tech has just set itself up across the board, I'm interested to see if that is going to translate into, with all the investment that they've made from the portal wins to the recruiting trail to the NIL, how that's going to make their players and their team, how that's going to translate into the season, because it may be Texas Tech may be what Texas was when the Big 12 was booming and popping. It might just be Texas Tech taking over the Big 12, and that's going to be really interesting to see.
Well, they need somebody to step up. I know Texas Tech is putting in some resources. Was it $40 million? That was the rumor. I don't know if that's true or not, but at least they're doing something because they just got a bunch of mid to bad teams just floating out there doing nothing. And they're gonna be where every 3 stars going to in the future. That's what's gonna happen. Is you're gonna have a segregated line. All the 4 and 5 stars are going to 2 conferences, and the 3, 2, 1s are going the other places.
Yeah.
All right, Daryl. Appreciate you stopping by, man.
Yeah, and make sure to hit the like button, guys.
Thanks, Daryl.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Daryl.
All right. I believe we have hit the end of the road for sure on this one. We should have probably done that about 20 minutes ago, not talking about you in particular, Daryl. All right. This is our On the Move show every Wednesday night, 8:30 Eastern time, taking your calls. I think I've got an idea for a good little twist next week. Just wait and see. All right. Leanne doesn't even know. Just came to me. But
I know, because I was like, we're always trying to spice things up on the show and call in the late night. But again, huge recruiting weekend. We are heading into week 2. So we talked about Texas A&M and Oregon being the headliners. They are in the 5-star primetime seats this weekend. Of course, we talked about 2027 names to know. So be back on the recruiting trail this weekend. Definitely, we will be up to talking about and getting you guys geared up and ready for everything that happened in week 2, the movers and shakers. It's shoot your shot weekend. So let's see what programs come on up on top and see who's a hit and a miss. But make sure you guys tune in next Wednesday, 8:30 here, prime time. Like, subscribe, get your calls ready. Let's talk some more ball and recruiting.
And for all the people that want us to stay on for at least like 1 or 2 more minutes, $500 in super chats in the next 2 minutes, and it will be yours.
Hey,
that means we're saying goodnight. That's basically what that means. We will see you back next Wednesday, everyone.